Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I'm here today with Joshua Shapiro. We're going to talk about Joshua says, hey, we're going to talk about a really interesting subject. So this is a show you're going to want to share. We're going to talk about a place called Tartaria. I don't even know if we're sure on the exact pronunciation, but this is a place that existed, we believe, a couple hundred years ago and has been erased from our history on purpose so that we don't know the truth. And so today, Joshua is going to bring us some truth that has been hidden from humanity. And this is a big show and this is a big deal. And so, you guys want to really keep an eye on this one and share it with your friends. Now, I just want to bring up one thing that was on the news today that I couldn't not say anything about. The headline is that I always say when my computer or when my printer goes on, that's God talking. The headline says, Biden administration promotes radical group pushing critical race theory in schools. And it says, while the abolitionist teaching network mission statement is vague, its rhetoric elsewhere indicates that it aims to overhaul schools to prioritize racial awareness. Now, only thing I'm going to say about this, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but I want to remind everybody that we are souls, we are energetic souls, and our bodies are just costumes. So it doesn't matter what color you are, we are all the same. And I need to say this because we get out there, oh, they're black, they're white, they're brown, they're red. It doesn't matter. We are all the same. We are souls in these bodies. And you guys, we got to stand up about this. Don't let them teach our children these things. Let us teach our children that we are all equal. Okay. So having said that, Joshua is the Crystal Skull Explorer. He's been on the show many times. I'm sure you know his background. Joshua, welcome back to High Road to Humanity.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for trusting me to talk about this subject because I never have publicly before. This will be my first time, but I think it is so important for people to be aware of it that we have to talk about it, or at least, even if they don't agree that it's real, either through this show or through the free ebook that I've created in preparation for this show, which they can receive. They will have access to many resources so they can make up their own mind, because this is a life-changing subject. Okay?
It really is. Yeah. And I'm really glad you're here. And thanks for coming on, Joshua, and talking about, and thanks for putting this together. I have to say, you guys, this is a very comprehensive study of what we're going to talk about today. So Joshua, please take it away. Tell the audience how we found out about this and a little bit about these people.
Okay. So I think it's pronounced Tartaria. This is what has been told to me. Now, Tartaria first came up when my wife, Katrina, had heard about it from a friend. And this was, I think, in the beginning of this year. So I didn't know what to make of it. And I didn't fully understand what they were talking about. So, but she planted a seed. So I was aware of it. And, you know, I would go on the internet a couple of times, and there are people with videos and all kinds of things available out there, photographs, pictures, everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so this isn't something we're making up. I think that there is absolute proof right in front of our face. However, I want to warn all of your listeners that if you decide to continue with this, even though for Nancy and I, we think it's really important, you may have to throw out every single thing you believe to be true, especially related to history. This is how important and powerful this information is. Yes. And it's like, even when I was going through it, and especially this one video, which is called The Lost History of the Flat Earth. We're not going to talk so much about the flat earth, but it is about Tartaria. And this guy really put it all together and started showing us what, these structures are that still exist that are very advanced and everything. It was like, I get it. I get it that,
Yeah.
there has been an advanced civilization that was here like about 200 years ago. This
Right.
doesn't sound possible, but hopefully as we go through the material, we can get an idea for it. Now, I don't know if you want me to just talk about it briefly, or probably the best way is just look at my slide presentation so people can be looking at pictures that I can.
Yeah, and let's do that. And Joshua, maybe we'll just do a little longer show today and I won't put it on the podcast. I won't break us. Let's just go. And maybe we'll do podcasts next time. I think it's just really important that you show this information. We go as long as we need to today. What do you
Okay.
think? Is that cool? All right, let's do it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
so just turn control over to me so
Oh,
I can
yes, I
share
have
my
to do
screen.
this. It's hard for me to give away control. Okay.
Tell me when you've done it.
I'm done. It was
Okay.
that quick, yeah.
Okay, so this should, okay, that brings it up.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's blocking. Okay, start from the first slide. Okay, so they should see the slide and see me like in the corner, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my title page, is it fact or fiction?
Right.
And this has been done specifically for Nancy's show. So that's why I say it's in conjunction with her, because she's giving me permission. Now at the bottom of this page also, I want to acknowledge the two key people who were inspiration for me to do this. One person, I don't know who he is, he's like anonymous. They just call him Siwar Anan. And the other person who's actually done 11 books. And I have the ability to share some of these books with your listeners, which again is in the free ebook, which we'll talk about at the end, how you can get it.
Okay.
David Ewing Jr. So between Siwar and David Ewing Jr., what I know and what I understand comes from them. But also too, the other key is, and this is true on anything that you study, whether it's the crystal skulls we talk about, or UFOs, or crop circles, or Bible code, or hollow earth, or any of these controversial subjects, you have to check with your own inner guidance and intuition. Does it feel right? Does it make sense to you? Okay.
Right.
I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to share with you the things in this PowerPoint presentation that really got to me, which made me think, and I totally believe that this large country or empire did exist 200 years ago.
Yes.
Or literally it was wiped out. And we'll be talking about these different aspects. Now, I don't know exactly how Tartaria was wiped out, how they were able to totally eliminate this large country, from our history. But, if you look at the people that we call the cabal, the globalists, whatever, they have all kinds of access to all kinds of resources. They're making incredible movies that are very lifelike. So I assume that they would have the ability to do it. But hopefully through this presentation, maybe it will give people a better feel and idea about what could be possible with Tartaria. So I'm going to go to my first slide. So why do we know this country exists? Well, there are old maps that are dated from the 1500s to 1800, which Tartaria happens to be on there, lying in a position where Russia is right now. And I have an example of one of those maps that was created, that was put in the Encyclopedia Britannica in 1771. So you'll have to see. Now, of course, I recognize that all the pictures I'm going to show you and everything, it could possibly be fake, but the buildings, but the buildings that exist in our world, when we start really looking at them and what they may be for, that's what got it to me. I mean, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But anyway, that's my next point. I just can't see these magnificent stone buildings that are all over the world, that these could have been done by people with primitive tools between the 14th and 19th century. Impossible.
Right,
Okay?
right.
And then the idea that in our history books, there is no mention of Tartaria in any way whatsoever. It's like everything has been erased about it. And these were very peaceful people with a very advanced technology who I think understood universal concept. So these are just some couple of key concepts I want to start with. And then
Right.
I'm going to go into my pictures next, I
I
believe.
just want to say they were a spiritual people, very
Yes,
spiritual people.
they understood the spiritual nature of the universe. They really
Right.
did. They could not have had their technology. Okay, so it looks like this is a map written in French. I'm not totally sure where the Encyclopedia Britannica got it, but it's showing you Tartaria, basically where Russia is in this map. And we can see there's Arabia there, and there's India, and that text, which I couldn't totally translate properly. The only part I got was Tartaria is a vast country in the northern parts of Asia, bounded by Siberia on the north and west. And they called it the Great Tartaria. And they called it the Great Tartaria because it was the largest country in the world at this time. So it means if this is 1771, this country existed then. Yet if you go back through all the history is going to talk about is Russia. You know, all this history about Russia. Now, Russia may have existed and been part of Europe where Moscow is, but it was a really tiny little country. It was
Mhm.
not the size that it is today. So in other words, what we know of as Russia was Tartaria. But how is that possible? How do we have any proof of this? Because everything about all the buildings in Russia, they have a history. Oh, it was made in, 1700, 1800. Totally not sure. But anyway, here is a map showing that
Can I just
Tartaria
interject
existed.
really quick? I noticed something while you're showing this map. It says Grand Tartaria.
Yes,
That was interesting. Grande, meaning that it was big.
right. And it was the
Yeah.
leading country of the world. Okay, like the
Mhm.
United States is considered the leading country. This was
Right.
the
Oh,
large.
look at this, you guys. Check this out.
Okay, now supposedly this is evidence of a large city. See, there's a lot of buildings here, but
Mhm.
there's also a lot of destruction. There's a lot of mud. There's a lot of dirt all over the place. It's almost as if these people standing around don't understand who made this city. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, part of what experts, researchers have tried to come up with is, how could such a large civilization be totally obliterated? And so
Right.
they've come up with this idea that there was some kind of mud flood. Now, this is quite interesting because I was thinking, how could there be such a flood of mud that covers the entire world? Because Tartaria had buildings everywhere. It wasn't just in Tartaria that we saw on the map. They were everywhere. And you're going to see that as I show you some more pictures here.
Right.
I'm
Their
not,
architecture, right. And let me interject here. Their
yeah,
architecture is found throughout the globe, and he's going to tell you why and the reason for it. Go
yeah,
ahead,
exactly.
Joshua. Yes.
Okay. So anyway, this is an example of a large city, probably was taken, I don't know, 1860s or whatever,
Right.
or 1880s, 1890s. Um, and there's a lot of damage done, but there's all these buildings left. Now, we had a friend who was talking about Tartaria, and she said she found an article written in 1858 by someone here in the United States. And in that article, this person kept talking about ruins. There are all these ruins throughout the United States. So my speculation is, and again, history has been totally rewritten, so you have no clue that there were cities this large with this many buildings.
Right. We've only
Okay,
been known what they have let us know.
exactly. So this is
Yes.
supposedly a picture taken 1880s, 1890s. And
Right.
what was going on then? And it's hard for us to believe because, if we look at all the cities today, everything is organized and the streets are paved and people are living in the buildings. So how would this be possible? Okay, let's try the next one here. Okay, now for the mud flood, part of the reason the experts talk about this is because there are so many buildings, older buildings, and it doesn't make any sense. Why do they have their lowest floor with their windows half covered up and their doors half covered up in the ground? It doesn't make any sense. This is an example of a building in Paris where they're pointing out that the lower floor is partially covered by the ground. Why
Mhm.
would somebody build something like this?
They
Now,
wouldn't.
if
They
right, they
wouldn't,
wouldn't.
Joshua. No.
Exactly. Now, if it was
Mm-mm.
only one or two buildings, okay, maybe that was their style. But these kind of buildings exist everywhere in the world. So again, the experts are saying there was this massive storm of mud that covered up all these buildings, but it wasn't only the lowest floor. If we go to the next picture, we'll see there were several floors
Yeah,
that were
look at this.
covered up.
Yeah,
Okay. I think this is from a city in Italy. So we
yeah.
have all these buildings, but under the ground is other floors of the same building. It's not
Right.
like for example, when I went into Peru, it looked like there were structures, very primitive structures built on top of advanced structures. Okay,
Mhm.
which would kind of make sense because people would come and they would say, hey, there's this big city here buried, this must be a special place, and they would build a primitive structure over this. But in this picture, this isn't what we're seeing. What we're seeing is this is a continuation of those buildings that were under the ground, which they have to excavate. Now,
Right.
there was also some comment told, I think this was a book by Ewing, where he said, under Paris, there is an entire city buried with 6 million dead under Paris, okay, above the current city of Paris.
Can I just
So,
say one thing?
yeah,
And I want to get this across because we haven't talked about this. We believe, and I believe, and we've talked about this, that this was a reset.
yes, that's a reset. So I was coming to that,
Okay,
but
sorry. I'm
right,
just, I want people to realize there was a reason they did this.
right. So
Mhm.
in other words, all I'm trying to do by showing these pictures is there any proof that there was this advanced civilization before that could have been
Mhm.
only 200 years ago?
Right.
What's the proof? Where does this come from? Because logically, if we go through the history, we know it doesn't make any sense. I
Okay.
mean, we've only been super advanced within, I would say, from the middle part of the 1900s,
So who
where we
built the
start,
buildings? Right. So who built
right?
all the,
So,
like, yeah, like the Taj Mahal and all these fantastic buildings. They didn't have the technology or the
right.
wherewithal to do it. Yeah.
Right. And it's not only the buildings and their structure, but they also have geometric patterns and ornamentation that's unbelievable. And you'll see that in as I go forward. And
Right.
so right
Right.
now I'm just kind of focusing on this idea of a mud flood. Now, an idea occurred to me because right now here on July 21st, 2021, we have floods that are happening everywhere. Now, Telegram has been a really good place for me to try to understand what's going on in the world because it's not censored. Okay, we have cancel culture. You can forget about the major media telling you about anything of significance that's going on in the world. But on Telegram, you can hear a lot. And what I've seen is that there's these weird weather patterns that are
Mhm.
happening in cities, almost as if there is a device that's totally creating it out of the air. Like, what about
Mhm.
HARP? We know we have this HARP device, which I think is up in northern Alaska or something like that. But this device could be used to create totally weird weather patterns. And these weird weather patterns, all of a sudden, floods are everywhere.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
Joshua,
kind,
I want to say something really quick. I had somebody on my show who said that, I think it was Christine W, said that if the cities don't pay the fee, then their weather is really bad. But if they pay their fee, then their weather is okay. Have you heard anything about that?
no, I
Yeah.
haven't. But
Hmm.
what I'm thinking about is spontaneously creating water floods, which would leave mud in the ground. Could they have had such a device? And
Yeah,
that's what they did to remove Tartaria from our history. So
right.
we already see we have a device that can create crazy weather. Maybe this is how it was done. I don't know, because this is the one question which nobody's quite sure. What happened to Tartaria? If they were so advanced technology and buildings and very spiritual, how could they be eliminated so quickly in 200 years?
Right.
But anyway, we have to continue here so we can look at more pictures. Okay, so this slide is to say these buildings are Tartarian. Okay, now these are buildings that we've seen in cities in Europe and cities in America, and we just think, yeah, we'll buy it. They were made in the 1700s or the 1800s, but they're very sophisticated and advanced buildings that
Right.
require, a very big technology. Now, if you also look too, again, the picture in the lower left-hand corner, we see debris. Okay, did something happen to the city that some of the buildings were affected? Because this person sitting there looks like he's surrounded by debris. But here's the things I want you to notice that seems to be common. And it doesn't matter if the building's in India or Russia or Europe or South America
Or the United States.
or
Yeah.
North America. We have buildings like this everywhere.
Mhm.
These are the common components which are part of the Tartaria. They have towers, okay? Like in the bottom right-hand corner, you see to the left is a tower. And there's always seems to be some kind of metal on the top of the towers as if it's an antenna
Right.
to receive some kind of energy.
Or
Okay?
copper or gold.
Right, copper, gold is very conducive for
Mhm.
electricity. They have domes. As we look at these structures, we see domes in the structure. Sometimes they have columns,
Right.
okay? But the key is, so we'll talk about this very briefly as we're looking at it, that these structures, according to the video I watched by Ewar, were not made just so they were beautiful and people would like to live in them. That their purpose was they were conduit to receive energy from the ether, he called it. And the ether would, now I'm not totally sure how I can explain this without talking what he says about the flat earth, but he said that there's different levels in the atmosphere,
Right.
okay? And that very high up in the Earth's atmosphere is the ether. And the four elements, fire, earth, water, air, are all components from the ether. It's almost like the ether represents the source of God. In other words, everything is made from ether, everything comes from ether. So this would be like the body of God, let's say. So if these people knew about the ether and they knew how to create buildings that acted like electromagnetic devices that were able to receive these frequencies of energy and generate free energy and free electricity for everyone on the planet.
Right.
This is what he said the purpose of these buildings was. It wasn't just, we like the design and the style and the structure.
Yeah, or the spire is really tall, right? If you
right.
look at them, you'll start to realize they're antennas.
Right. So
Yeah.
this is what he said was the purpose. And then I don't have pictures of this, but in the free ebook is this video I watched. He goes into a lot more detail. You
Right.
definitely want to watch The Lost History of the Flat Earth. It is the most amazing video I've ever seen. He explains everything.
I agree with you too, Joshua, on that
Right.
one. Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of like an introduction to give you some of the clues about why people believe Tartaria existed. So for me, this is the most visual clue. These buildings could not have been done by people, if our history is correct, which I'm not sure that it is.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that primitive people without power tools, by hand, they couldn't have done this. These buildings were there when the people came to repopulate the cities. But
right. And can I just add really quick? He
Yeah.
talks about the bells and the sounds in these buildings, and that's the vibration. And they used, so they use sound, the ether, the electric, and he'll talk about water too. And it's a combination of these elements that created electricity and made it free for the world.
Right. Cymatics is what it's called when you use sound to create geometric forms, which are energy, because each one is a certain hertz.
So the windows, talk about the windows and stuff in the buildings a little bit.
Well,
understand.
Right. The other thing is, like in churches, we have these glass windows, right? Well, those windows were not filled with glass. They were totally open because they would, when the frequency, the sound, like if they had an organ in there. And again, I've seen some organs in Europe and they're very advanced structures. And I don't believe that primitive people could have made these organs. So like if they used in a church and they would play an organ in certain sound, the windows were not filled with glass. Glass interferes with the broadcast of the energy. So in other words, Ewar calls the people the controllers. It's basically the cabal or the globalist or whatever. They understood fully how these buildings work, and they took out like some kind of generators from them, and they tried to do everything possible. So they made people think they were churches and cathedrals, when in effect they were these buildings to generate these free energy and
Right.
electricity that was available everywhere. And there's one picture I have, I'm going to be showing you a little bit later, where I think I see one of the antennas that was used for the free energy, which doesn't look like an antenna. No, this is an antenna outside of the building. So
Mhm.
anyway, these kind of buildings appear everywhere. Okay, so it's like, you know, when people, well, we haven't gotten into the reset yet. I got
Yeah,
to
get the
show,
next slide up. Yeah.
I have to show another picture
Oh,
and
there you
talk about it
go.
before I read it. Okay,
There
now
you go.
I like this particular building because it has all the aspects of the electromagnetic grid
Yep.
built in. It has the towers, it has the columns, it has the dome, it has the antenna on top, and it has these magnificent, you know, geometric patterns
And the
inside
water.
and
And the
right,
water.
right. And
Yeah.
then there's the water, which
Yeah.
also Ewar says that these structures would take the energy and store it in the water, and then people could link into the water and they would have channels everywhere and rivers
And it
and the
helped
whole
the
thing.
plants grow too. He talks about the energy of the water, and they had learned, and you'll show, hopefully you have a picture of maybe some of the gardens. I don't
No,
know.
I
But
don't have any
if you guys
picture.
watch the video, he'll show gardens. And again, it was the combination. I think this is so cool because it makes sense. It's the combination of sound and the water, and they would put this vibration into the water. And it just goes back to, you know how they used to say, sing to your plants. It makes the plants and everything grow. The
Right.
vibration. I just want to say that because I think that's
No,
amazing stuff.
there are so many important things that he talked about in
Yeah.
that video. You know, we can't cover them all. I can't cover them all in the ebook either. But it's just like we're trying to whet your appetite and say, how could people in 1631 to 1648, which is what our history says, make this?
They
How
didn't.
could they do that?
Yeah.
It's impossible. Now, there's one thing I mentioned in the ebook, which is an experience that I actually had, where I stood on one of the pyramids in Mexico as Teotihuacan, the Temple of the Sun. And I'm looking at these stones underneath me. It's very advanced, huge structure. How could primitive Mesoamerican people have built it? It's very possible even the pyramids could have been built by the Tartarians. They were very, very advanced. They knew what they were doing. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm showing you all these building structures because this to me is irrefutable evidence for myself that there's something going on that they're not talking about. And it makes perfect sense that an advanced civilization existed before us and built this, and they got rid of them, and then we inherited their cities. And that's why all these structures are still there.
Right.
So let's see what I got next. This one, I was trying to fix it. I guess I didn't fix it. It's the Arc de Triomphe, or the Arc of Triumph in Paris, which everybody has seen. You know, it's kind of like this. It actually looks like a bar magnet. Okay.
Yeah, because
And
it is,
according,
huh?
right. And
Yeah.
they said it, and there's the years 1806 to 1814, 1832 to 1836 is when they built it. Again, they didn't have the technology to make this. And I have a feeling that even though we see it's made from stone, there's probably metal that's
Metal.
embedded within the stone. So it works like a huge electromagnet.
Yeah.
And the picture that I can't show you, which ER shows you in the video, if you look around Paris where this is, okay, and you see the layout of the homes and everything around it, it almost looks like, what did he say? Like like, you know, one of the boards in the computer that we have, almost like
Mhm.
the energy that was emanating from the structure to all the
Mhm.
homes and
Right,
everything,
right.
you know, like a computer board.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this is to me is another example, 95 million kilograms of stone to do this. How are they going to bring that much stone to make this? Not even talking about how would they, you know, carve into the stone, but what did they have? A horse and buggy carrying
Yeah.
a cart to do that? It's impossible.
Right.
Okay, so the idea Ewar is saying is because we have these very advanced buildings, it's right in front of us. This is the proof
I
that there
know.
was somebody very advanced that was here before us. Okay,
Mhm.
Okay, so let's head on to the next one. I think the next picture. Oh yeah, then we have the star forts. Okay, now
I just
according
think
to
these are amazing. I think the star forts are amazing because it really does show. I mean, how can you look at this and think that this didn't happen? I mean,
Right.
it's right there.
So why are they calling it a star? Excuse me, star fort.
Yeah.
It's because they want you to believe that in the center of this design is the old fort. Okay, and then they built this star structure, which many times had water around it, and that it was for a fort. But again, how can you build something like this if you're not up in the air to see what you're doing? Because
Mhm.
we didn't have flight until the early 1900s.
Right.
So now this isn't the only one that exists. They're all over the world, these star forts. Okay. And they'll give you fake history about, when it was created and it was a fort. And because of the design, it could be very easily defend itself. No, this was another visible sign of the electromagnetic grid. This was used to help to boost the electromagnetic grid all over the world, and it was always connected, although they may have drained the water from it. Like, we also have regular forts too, which have moats. But again, those structures of those
Yeah.
forts were not a castle to defend itself. It was
Right.
used as one of the structures with water around it to help to promote and send out the electromagnetic energy that they were generating
Yeah. I
through
love
all
how they
this.
said they were moats. I just think that's, it's just
Right,
great. Come on,
right now,
really?
right now, the same thing is we have to ask this question. Does this mean, because we're talking about cathedral and churches,
Right.
that all the religions of the world may be falsified in their history?
Yeah.
So we have to question everything, and we don't know because all history connected to Tartaria is wiped out. Okay,
Mhm.
so we don't know. Was there a Jesus? Was there a Buddha? Was there Muhammad? There may have been, but maybe they distorted the history. We don't know. And I'm not saying this to anger anyone who is a religious person.
Right.
I'm just saying that the truth is getting ready to come out. I
Right.
absolutely believe this. And a lot of people, they're not only going to be shocked by the truth of what's been happening within the last 50 to 100 years, but they're going to be shocked by the history of our world. And this is a clue by Tartaria showing us that we may not know anything about the true history of our world.
Right.
Okay. Like I believe there was an Atlantis, but I'm not sure. How does Atlantis connect to Tartaria? Is Tartaria an extension of Atlantis? I don't know.
Right.
Okay. But
Right.
I know that what I'm sharing with you shows there was an advanced people that existed here. And I believe they were called Tartaria or Tartarians. Now
And
I
I
didn't.
just, yeah, and I just
Go
want
ahead.
to stop for a second. I do believe there was a Jesus, but I do believe that they have altered our Bibles. So I just want to say that. So you guys got to take everything with a grain of salt, you know what I mean?
Right. So we really have to be open and receptive that
Mhm.
we're going to be given new truths that are going to shock a lot of us.
Right.
But, you know, um, the world is going to see peace. That's all I know. The Tartarians had a peaceful world. So I
They
think we're
did.
going back to what it was that they had. And we will have access to all their technology in the future as well, because
Right.
I'm sure there are hidden records somewhere that somebody has that completely defines exactly how they did everything.
Right.
Now, I wanted to mention, we still have in the world today people who are called Tartars. Okay. So
Mhm.
there were Tartars that existed, but whether they existed the way that history says, question mark. And there what is a country called Tartarstan, which was part of the USSR. It's just south of Moscow, maybe a couple 100 miles, and they have like 3 million people. So that might be all that remains
Of
of
that.
Tartaria.
Yeah.
There
How
might be some
interesting.
aspects there that still remain, because that would be close to the area I showed you on the map. Okay, so I think I know the next picture I put up. Yes, this is about the reset. Okay, so in Iwar's film, he's showing pictures. Now, where he gets these pictures from, I don't know, but many major cities in the world. This is either
Yeah.
Moscow or St. Petersburg. How could they take a picture during the day of this huge city and there's not one person walking around?
No
It's
people.
completely empty. And this is from the 1860s.
So
Okay,
if it's
so
from the 1860s, so they had to wipe everybody out like between, yeah, around this time. It would have to be because it's
well, I think that this is my opinion based on everything I've heard.
okay.
There were different levels of removing evidence of Tartaria. So
Okay.
obviously one level is the people, okay,
Yeah.
but you still have the buildings. Now we actually have some kind of bomb that will not destroy the buildings, but it will kill people by radiation,
Lovely.
okay? So,
Lovely.
all right, but I don't know. But here we have a picture of a huge city. It's during the day. It's impossible. We can't see one person.
Right.
Okay,
There's
but
no
it
people.
isn't
Can
just
you take
this.
your picture up just a little bit so they can see the bottom of this at all,
Um,
Joshua? Or no, that's okay.
no,
Okay,
I can't.
no, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to, I don't want to screw you up, but the bottom of it, says the thing. Now, you're going to talk about the children next, yes?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Okay.
Okay, so on what I'm going to share with you too in one of the next slides is other cities that he shows pictures of in the video. Okay, how many different cities there were.
Throughout the
So,
world, yeah.
right. So this reset that had to happen sometime in the 1800s. And then they did a reset and they had to repopulate these cities. So the orphans she's talking about is how, but I'm not quite there yet. Okay, so here is where I talk about some of the places where there are pictures and there's nobody there. And this is impossible based on our history. So Moscow and St. Petersburg in Russia, 1860s. Edinburgh, Scotland, 1840s. Copenhagen, Denmark, 1840s. Dresden, Germany, 1860s. Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, 1860s. Toronto, 1860s. Athens, 1860s. San Francisco, 1860s or 70s. But then they have pictures of these cities and all of a sudden people start showing up. Okay, they're populated, but they're populated by a very primitive type of people using horses and buggy and hand tools. And, they don't have any advancement. It's essentially what we're saying is these people were brought to these cities and they inherited all the buildings that were already there. They didn't make
Right.
any of them.
Right.
Okay, they made more modern ones, yeah, made out of wood and tin, very primitive type structures, but not these buildings we've been talking about. So now here we're moving forward, okay, and we see people. So it means this city got repopulated, but they still have dirt roads.
It's just amazing. You look at the dirt road and then you look at the architecture. It's like, come on.
Right, so it doesn't make any sense. They should have paved roads like we have now. Okay,
Unbelievable.
but they have dirt roads. So again, doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're coming to the orphans. Now this is fully documented in our history. From 1850 to 1930, there were, they say hundreds of thousands, I think there were millions of children who were orphans, or they called them foundlings. Now, why were there so many children without parents?
Why'd they
Or
call
why,
them foundlings?
um,
Because they were found without parents?
yes, I believe so. But
Interesting.
that was the term they used back then.
Okay.
Okay, so there are all these children and they're going to these institutions, to these orphanages, or they're literally being taken from unwed mothers. So, and they made laws about this, that they could get these children. So let's think about this. So let's say, now I can't prove this, but this is the theory. So let's say we have this reset. Let's say the same people we're dealing with now, they still had advanced technology, or they had help from some dark galactic beings or extraterrestrial beings. That's very possible too, okay? Super advanced weapons. They decide to set the world. Okay, so now why do they want all these children? Because they need to re-educate them. They need to tell them about, well, Tartaria never existed, so they don't talk about it, but they teach them the history that we've heard about. Okay, they have to come up with an
The
explanation.
they're reprogramming people.
Right, they have to explain where all the buildings come from. And
Mhm.
then they say, well, you know, you see that cross on that building there, that's a church. That's a Christian church.
Mhm.
Okay, so they use some of the symbols from Tartaria that are on the buildings and they make religions out of them to explain, you know, what are these symbols, you know, or if you look at the supposedly paintings, which I don't have an example of here or in the ebook, from the Renaissance, they're
Right.
talking about in the books, how did the the people in the 14 and 1500s or 1600s, could they make so realistic paintings like
Right.
that with just regular paint and hand tools? It looks
Mhm.
like they're prints, like we can make master prints off our printers today that are very accurate and beautiful and totally designed. Okay, so the key concept is they got the children and they needed to repopulate all the cities that got wiped out. So by the 1890s, they were starting to repopulate them. Okay, and the children were educated on the history they wanted them to know.
And I want to
Not
say something real quick here, Joshua. One thing you talked about in the video, and I found this as a woman really crazy, but it made a whole lot of sense. He said that what they did was they made it like if you got pregnant and you weren't married, they would take your child. They would shame you in society, and they made it to be a shame to not be married and out of and have a child. So they would shame you to the point where they would take the children and they would put them in orphanages. And this is the mindset that they did to people. And they took people's children away from them and sent them to orphanages. And the other thing I want to say is, we hear about the orphanages then, but there are not that many now.
exactly, because we have so many people now, everything is populated. But what are they doing now? What is, so many people said the vaccine, and you know, it's a very debatable issue, but there are many doctors out there, and I know within myself, it's killing a lot of people. Literally,
Yeah.
it hasn't been tested. So is this the way they're going to do the next reset? Because they're talking about
Well, and
the
they're
globe.
bringing the children in from other countries instead of the orphanages. In my mind, I'll just say what I think. I think that, at this time, they found a way to manipulate the children. But now, today, they're bringing them in from other countries. They're refugees, and that's what they're doing.
Right. So it's always around the children, the whole basis of what is being created, you know, like the education they're giving to children and so on. But
Mhm.
they're talking about doing a reset again. So I think the reason why Tartaria is very important and what we have to learn from this is that a reset can happen. You
Yeah.
know, this isn't crazy talk.
Nope.
When the globalist starts saying, or the bankers start saying, oh, we're going to do a new reset, we're going to change money and everything, their their purpose is to redo the world as we have it. And then if that was to happen, which I know for a fact it's not going to happen, God is not going to allow this, it is not part of this reality. Okay, but people have to wake up, and hopefully Tartaria will help some people wake up to what's happened in the past. You
Right.
know, this isn't going to happen, but their plan is then they'll re-educate the children of the future, and they'll give them a whole different history than what we got.
And they'll
To,
never know the truth. And see, I believe now we're going to start to know the truth. So I'm so glad you came to do this
right,
today.
so Tartaria is a key for us to understand the truth about our planet, okay, about who we are, where did we come from, you know, and so on. But there's more to go here that we have to consider. Okay, now this was taken from Ewar's video,
Mhm.
and it was an actual live film that I was watching. I don't know how he got it, but supposedly he was showing a tremendous electric light around their buildings, which we haven't had that until recently. Okay, but then there's this colored lights that are appearing in the sky that are being projected, and he's saying that this is like late 1800s, early 1900s. This is an example of the technology that they had. Okay,
They use
and
color. It's interesting they use color lights because that just interests me that must have had a certain energy. Each color maybe had a certain energy, a certain
right.
frequency,
So in the free ebook, there is a link to a portion of his video where he shows live video of people on an electric walkway, and they're wearing clothes of the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he shows these lights and everything that's being done in these cities. So I don't know where he found that, but he said it was a big mistake by the globalists that they didn't get rid of that, because that was more evidence and proof, that there was these advanced technologies that existed.
Mhm. Right.
Okay, now this is another picture I found, may not be directly connected to Tartaria, but we had these electric motor cycles in the 1920s, okay? And it may be that they are a residual that came from Tartaria, which of course they were totally eliminated, because they wanted to hold us back from technology. Now, one of the things that I remember seeing on a YouTube was, like a film or a movie of people walking in a city, and it's like in the 1920s, and there's a woman who had a mobile phone. She has something to her ear she's
Oh,
talking
no
into.
kidding. Oh my gosh.
And I'm wondering if that came from Tartaria and it wasn't that she was traveling in time, that she had a device that they still had. Like you're seeing here, this is very advanced for 1920. If they may
Mhm.
have still had some of the devices the Tartarians had created, and it looked like she had a mobile phone. So this picture reminds me of what I saw there. So I thought this was interesting.
It is, yeah.
Okay, now look at this. What does this look like? It looks like Stonehenge, right?
Mhm.
And what are
It
they
does.
doing? They're
They're
making
building it.
Stonehenge. They're building it, and then they're saying, oh, this was by the Druids. This is, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. Now, I've been to Stonehenge, and there are strong energies in this area, which may not necessarily be from the stone, but it may be from all the people coming and meditating
They
and
were
doing
covering it
prayer.
up.
Right.
Joshua, you know what I just picked up intuitively? They're covering up the energy fields. They're covering it up with
Well,
these
this
stones.
may be that they had the stones to cover it up,
Oh
but
my
the
gosh.
reason I showed this is because to support the fake history or the
Mhm.
fabrication, they've created fake artifacts too, fake books, fake artifacts, to try to say, okay, see, we have these artifacts. Oh, see, we have Stonehenge here. This was, done a long time ago. So this is proposing, I think this is a real picture.
Yeah.
It's Stonehenge, like maybe other supposedly old sites, they may have built it like during the reset. Okay, now
Mhm.
this probably was done in the early 1900s or 1930 or 40 or whatever. But, so
Interesting.
this is just some evidence that, how far will these people go to fake the history to convince you it's real? Okay, now this picture is trying to show that when people talk about the Tartarians themselves, they say that they were taller than us. They were like giants. Okay. Now I have seen video, okay, on YouTube where they've dug into the ground and they've actually found a skeleton of what looks like a human being, but it's huge. It's a giant. Okay.
Mhm.
So maybe when the Bible's talking about the giants, they were talking about the Tartarians. Okay.
Maybe.
Because
Yeah.
they were supposed to be really tall. Because the other thing that Eeyore talks about is he says, why are the doors so high in these
Yeah.
buildings?
Yeah.
Okay. Wouldn't it make sense they were high because the people were
They're
tall?
tall. Yeah.
So on the left, we have an illustration supposedly of a child with her parents. Okay, but they're supposed to be giants. And on the right, we have an actual so-called picture of a person like us. Again, you see the damage to the city,
Mhm.
okay, with a very tall person. So
Mhm.
maybe these very tall people that were in circuses in the early 1900s, they were uh, from Tartaria. They were
Right.
descendants from Tartaria. Now, if you look in the background on the picture on the right, there's a strange looking antenna there. And I'm thinking that that was a Tartarian antenna for receiving the free energy.
And look at
That's
the
what they,
doorway. And look how tall the doorway is.
exactly. So again, is this true or not? Can't say, but there are many pictures, and there was again a video I list in the free ebook that said had more pictures of tall people, but also had immense sized books that were found. Why would people make these huge books unless they happen to be big people?
Big people. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what's the proof of getting rid of Tartaria? Well, from 1760 to 1930, there were over 100 fires in many big cities in the world. Now, I have a list of the actual fires that are recorded to happen in these cities in the United States. So we're talking about 3 different times in New Orleans, 1805 in Detroit, a couple of times, 6 times in Charleston, South Carolina, 2 times in Savannah, Georgia. Again, these are happening late 1700,
Yeah,
1800.
look at the dates. Look at the dates. It
Raleigh,
all
North Carolina.
coincides.
Yeah, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Atlanta. This is all in the free ebook I have, but I just want to put it. The big fire of Chicago of 1871, 1889 in Seattle. What was the purpose of the fire? Get rid of the Tartarian buildings.
Mhm.
Burn
Get rid
them
of the
down.
evidence. Yeah.
Get rid of the evidence. 1906 earthquake in San Francisco. We're all familiar with that. Same thing. Get rid of the building. San Francisco was a huge city. Imagine this in 1860s or 70s, there's these settlers, they're looking for gold in California and they find San Francisco and it's huge. It could hold 1 million people. How could those settlers who are untrained make the city so it's huge by 1906? Impossible.
Right.
Plus, the other thing Iwar said is if you looked at the destruction in the 2 cities in Japan that got hit in the Second World War with an atomic bomb, San
Right.
Francisco, after the earthquake, looked a lot like that as well. So the last point I have, speculation, is could the wars like the Civil War, okay, or World War I or World War II, could they have happened not just for the reasons that we were told, or
Right.
not just to make these globalists a lot of money because they supported both sides, but again, was used to get rid of the buildings from Tartaria that were still around. So in other words, if they repopulated these cities with people, these people would have no idea. They would just say, okay, this is just given to us. They wouldn't be thinking about it. But the controllers knew that as time went on, people would start asking questions about how could primitive people have made these structures?
Well,
And so
yeah,
they
nobody ever has. And I'm surprised nobody ever has up until this point. You know
right,
what I mean?
right. So again, these are clues, possible clues for the existence of Tartaria 200 years ago and what happened to our world to where we are now, where there's no history about it. And all we have left basically are these structures where we've been given an explanation for the last 200 years, what they're about, which has nothing to do with what they were about.
Right.
Okay, so I'm ready to go into my concluding points. Okay, so I think, there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more in the video that Iwar did, but this is what I think are the keys that lead me to believe as your spiritual brother, as an individual, that Tartaria had to exist. There's no way in the 14th to the 19th century, the churches, cathedral, the government buildings, the star forts, that they could have been done by the people living then.
Right.
Only an advanced civilization with very advanced technologies could make these structures. And as I said, their purpose was to help them create a global electromagnetic grid for free energy and electricity. And so all of that had to be dismantled and relabeled as something else, so
Yeah.
that people wouldn't be questioning, the building. Oh, that's a church. Yes. Oh, how beautifully done are all the symbols and
Oh
everything.
my
And
gosh.
no thought whatsoever what it would take to do that, and if we have the technology to do that. Okay, then we just finished up again 200 years ago. Hard to believe. Okay, but we have pictures showing empty cities, that there was a total global reset to take Tartaria out. So either the globalists back then, or the controllers, as he will call them, had very advanced technology to do it, like they're
Mhm.
doing now with the floods, or they had help from some extraterrestrials. Maybe they had HARP already back then to create water floods all over the planet.
Yeah, they had to have done something in order
Right.
to flood everything like they did.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the reset was the repopulation with the orphans from 1850 to 1930,
Mhm.
re-educate them. So they believe the history that they're
Control.
told.
It's
Right,
control. The whole thing is
right,
control. Yeah.
right. And then lastly, if our past history has been fabricated and we're going to have to throw everything out, the one thing that I think is the saving grace of all this is that we did have an advanced civilization called Tartaria. Even if they were very tall, they had very advanced technology, and they lived a very peaceful and harmonious life. And this is a clue that we are going to go back to that, and that we already have a lot of these structures and the system available for people to do it. Now, the last part of my slides is just a couple of things related to myself. I'm going to go through it really fast, just in case people are interested in other stuff we do. So there's one of my famous pictures with my
Yay.
beautiful crystal skull,
I
Portal de
love it.
Luz.
I love it.
And these are the kind of crystal skulls, which actually Nancy has one of these.
I
They're called
do.
Geronimo
I do.
Juniors that we've been offering. We have master carvers in India helping us.
Yeah.
And
Can I say
and
something, Joshua? Can I say
Yeah,
something
go ahead.
about my skull? I love,
Yeah.
I've always been attracted to the skulls, but I do have one, and she's beautiful, and I call her Hope, and I meditate with her every day, and she is rose quartz, and it's wonderful, the vibration, and she brings me information, and I just want to say that how wonderful these skulls are.
Right. So I see them and have seen them since what, 38 years, I guess, or whatever, as a powerful tool that can help us to develop our creative gifts and our spiritual gifts. And there are very old crystal skulls. I'm thinking Tartaria must have known about this.
Yeah.
There are old skulls that exist out there that have amazing frequencies and energy and knowledge encoded. They're coming back to help us to create peace. So this is a reason why I'm connected to it. And they talk to me and they tell me that that's what they're for. The next couple of slides are just some of our books. Unfortunately, I used the same cover, so we have two different books. This is about a visit to Mexico in 2009 and what we saw about crystal skulls. By the way, the purple skull on the cover is a very, very old skull, which I'm trying to get in touch with these carvers in China that are making replicas of it. So I'm hopeful it might be available in the future with Portal de Luz. The old skull looking at the new skull, which is very important. Then again, same cover, but this one is about 3 trips I took to Peru looking for a totally light sky blue crystal skull that I think existed in Lemuria and Atlantis. So but this is listed. There's links in the free ebook. This is my attempt to work with my friend Karen to do a novel called Journey into the Unknown.
Oh, I
And
love
back
it.
again, where the main character kind of looks like me and the other one looks like Katrina, goes through a dimensional door and he meets the people and he learns all the truth of everything and comes back through the dimensional door to tell people, but he needed that blue skull, which is very important for me
I
to
didn't
be
know about this
holding.
book, Joshua. I didn't know about this book.
Yeah,
That's cool.
so it's supposed to be a trilogy, but we've only written the first book. So it's getting to meet these characters and he goes through the door, but then everybody says, but what happens to him on the other side? That's the next book, which we haven't finished yet.
I love it. I love it.
All right. And then just a couple of things. Again, this is all in the free ebook. We have 2 Crystal Skull websites. One of them, oh, I forgot. This is now the 5th free ebook that I've done.
Yes.
Okay. There are 4 other ones. I'm going to let that ebook talk about them, but we have a page where you can get 3 of them that's on there. But it's my email at the bottom. If you want to talk about this, if you have information about Tartaria, crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com, write to me or send an email if you want to know about how to get this free ebook or all 5 free ebooks. Okay.
Right.
I will write to you, but in this free ebook is the information how to get the other 4. So if you get this one, then you'll have all this information that we have there.
Right.
So I hope I did a good job. This is the first time I've talked about
You did a good
Tartaria.
job. You did a good job. I want to say one thing before we end today, and it's something I said to you, and I know we talked about, but I want the audience to know what my feeling is, and I think you feel the same way. I believe that there will come a point where we can reconnect this grid system.
Yes.
Because everything's in place, you guys, everything throughout the world, not here, not there. It's all connected and it's ready to go. Now we do need to put in, they've removed the mechanism that made it operate. Because you can, and you'll see if you watch this other video, you'll see where the big, I don't know what it was, if it was.
It was in an octagon shape. There were like
Yes,
these little tiny buildings or structures of an octagon shape with nothing in it. And
right.
EWAR was saying that's where the
Like
generator,
the guts, yeah.
right, the guts that made the whole system work, that's where
Work.
it was. And they removed it.
But my
And
point is, I just want to say that I think we will have this again. I
Yeah.
believe we will have this again. And Joshua, thank you, because I would never have known about any of this stuff if it wasn't for you. So thank you.
Well, I heard your name as soon as I said, how should I share this? Okay. And I
Nancy
heard,
will do it.
and Spirit said, Nancy will have you on her show. So
She
you can
will.
practice it. So
Of
it's
course.
just another new subject to add, to all the rest, the crystal skulls, the UFO,
I
the
love
world
it.
mysteries, the crop circles, Bible
All of
code,
it.
all of that. They're all parts and pieces and clues that we're going into a golden age, that we have had a golden age not so far back. I didn't think
Mhm.
that we had such a peaceful planet, only 200 years ago, but that's how long it is. So we're going to have that. We're working toward it. And I think that, all the crazy things happening now, it's to wake people up. Hey,
Yeah.
can't sit on the sidelines. We need to work together as the one family of humanity. These vaccines are crazy. They are crazy. There's absolute proof about it. Just like there's absolute proof, I'm sure, that's getting ready to break out about the election in the United States. We all
Mhm.
know it was brought. It's almost like the light, the truth. There's these cracks that are showing up everywhere.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree.
There's these cracks of the light showing up everywhere. So the
Right.
only question we don't know, and everybody has to just be patient and go day by day. And I've spoken about this before in one of your other shows.
Mm,
We don't know the timing
right.
of when the positive information and the truth is fully going to be expressed. I mean, it could be happening in 2 days. That guy who did, the antivirus program, and I forget his name. This is my problem of being 66.
Oh,
I
you're
can't,
fine. You're good.
so everybody knows this guy. He has a dead man switch. It's supposed to go on in two days, and he could be releasing all kinds of truth out everywhere because so many people have used his antivirus program, named
Mhm.
after him. So it's like the truth cannot be held back. And I just know it's God's will that we're going to see peace on the planet. I've had a couple of visions. That's what one of the free ebooks is about, my 2 most powerful visions that show me this. So Tartaria is just another clue that we're going to go back. So thank you so much, Nancy, for coming. And I thank all the people that didn't go away, okay, because, this stuff is going to make you really think about, is everything I've been told really true?
Right.
Okay. And the one thing about the flat earth, I just have to say one thing about that. I'm
Sure.
not sure I agree with that or not yet. However, there's one thing that Ewar said, and he has another video he created just on the flat earth.
Mhm.
And that is, if a plane or a bird flies in the sky and we live on a round ball, then that plane or bird has to be heading downward in order to go straight. And I don't know any pilots or any birds I watch that do that. They're flying, straight across the sky. So
Mhm.
is that a possibility? I don't know.
I think
Like,
it is a possibility. I'm going to have somebody on my show, you guys, about the flat earth. I've been thinking about it. I've had somebody approach me and I wasn't sure about it, but I'm thinking I'm going to have somebody and I'm kind of looking to find the right person to bring on to talk about it. So yeah.
yeah, because what Ewar says that the earth is flat is unbelievable. That the
Right.
earth is stationary and the sun and the moon are revolving around us.
That's
That
a
the
whole,
rest of the solar system isn't planets, it's stars. I mean, it's just really wild stuff.
yeah.
But then I wouldn't put it past these controllers or the globalists to lie about everything so that it fits their scenario
Narrative.
they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, their narrative that they want
Yeah.
us to live by. So,
Right.
you know,
Well, Thank you, Joshua, and we'll get out of here for today. You guys, if you have questions, email Joshua. You're welcome to email me, nancyyearout@gmail.com. If you want a psychic reading, go to my website, nancyyearout.com. Joshua, thank you again. God bless.
Yes, thank you so much, Nancy. It was fun. Thank
It
you.
was fun. I know. Hi, this is High Road to Humanity. This is Nancy Yearout, and we will see you next time. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the high road.
Hey, you guys, join me next week on The High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Have a fabulous week, and know that by staying on the high road, you will make it to your destination. Visit my website, nancyyearout.com, where you can book a private session to learn how to tap into your own abilities. And check out my YouTube channel. It's Nancy Yearout's High Road to Humanity.
You can achieve your goal.